Broncos Country! The NFL draft has come and gone, and the Denver Broncos have a slew of new players, personnel, whoever you want to call them. We have plenty. We got several in the draft. We got a bunch undrafted. There's a bunch of rookies being invited to rookie minicamp that aren't even signed. There is so much to talk about. There's so much to unpack. And whether you like the picks or whether you dislike the picks, we're here to talk about it. It's going to be a good time. Welcome to the post-draft episode of the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast. Let's go!
Smooth, the pins to chew, breaking down plays about to debut. Denver pride in every view, nothing rhymes with orange and blue. Bright lights of my heart in our view. Nothing rhymes with orange and blue. Nothing rhymes with orange and blue. Nothing rhymes with orange and blue. From draft picks to game reviews, celebrating wins, analyzing the clues. Nothing rhymes with orange and blue. Nothing rhymes with orange and blue. No orange and blue.
Nothing rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast.
Oh, buddy, what's up, Broncos Country?
Oh.
How are you doing, Orange and Blue crew? Welcome to the first post-draft episode of the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast here on the Orange and Blue Network. I am your host, Johnny the Mile High Viking, and with me, as always, my cousin, my childhood best friend, my co-host, Jay the Dream Weaver. What's up, guys? How you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, of course. Oh.
Doing fine. Soaking in some post-draft grades. The analysis of who the heck we got, because as we'll get into it today, we did a draft on our own terms and got a bunch of names outside the popular boxes of mock drafts. So there's a lot of unknowns to a lot of the elements of this draft. So
there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to
really
unpack. It's crazy, man. I know that Broncos Country is very split right now on how they feel about this draft. We were live for round one, and man, we're sitting there screaming, Jihad Campbell, go get him. And then they're like, nah, Jahdae Barron. We're like, oh, okay. And we get to our next pick. We trade back twice, and we're like, hey, oh my gosh, Caleb Johnson is still on the board. Go get him. And they're like, nah, RJ Harvey. We're like, oh, okay.
Didn't have that one either.
Yeah.
Yep.
It went that way. It went that way the entire draft.
And then if you were to tell me after those two picks, we would go back-to-back edge rushers, that's mind-blowing. I don't care about the player, just the position rankings of where things lied. I know we're going to go pick by pick here. And when you break it down pick by pick, it makes sense, and you can see the logic behind it. But if, man, you take, the national media perspective of the Broncos, I would say other than the Barron pick, everyone's going to be a little side-eyed at, probably pretty questionable. I mean, they got their guys that Absolutely. They valued, but differently valued than the national narrative of them.
Absolutely. And that was a big, a big narrative about this draft. It's been all over, and me personally, on my side of things, I love how this draft played out, because ultimately we made picks. We made picks for all three phases of play. We made some picks that are, instant are meant to be instant contributors that are meant to come in and make this team better for this year. And then we got others to build towards our future. And that's the thing, is that in our more recent drafts up to this point, we were kind of looking at every single pick as somebody who can come in and needs to contribute now. You know what I mean? All the way up to like round 6. And with this draft, we were in such a comfortable position with Bo Nix and with where this team is sitting already as a playoff team with after a season with a rookie quarterback. We were sitting in such a good position that now, for the first time in a long time, we didn't just have to address right now. We were able to go get some dudes that they see as being the future. What we can, building towards, keeping this team strong when other, important players, big names, whatever, have to depart, because that's part of the game. And so it wasn't the sexiest draft. I'll say that. It was not the sexiest draft. It wasn't like every pick was like sitting there going, yeah, buddy, like that was the hot pick and all that. But it was what I would call efficient. It was an efficient draft.
Yep. I'm dubbing this the trust the process draft, because there are so many projects and people that have, raw ability that need to be developed in this draft that, like, it kind of makes me think this team is standing pat, essentially. Like, they would rather take the bigger wild card for a player 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line, than find an immediate impact today. Like, it was kind of nice to have, what we were talking about, the flexibility of being a contender with young players under, small money. It is, we have the ability to just kind of play best player available. And like, it seems like time and time again in this draft, that's exactly what it was. I would say the Harvey second round pick was probably the only, we know we have to take this position, and like, this is our second or third plan. Like, that wasn't the plan all along, I don't believe. At least I don't think so. Do you think RJ Harvey was the plan the entire time, or was that a reactionary pivot of player of preference?
Based on the way that it happened, I would actually have to say he was their pick.
Really?
Because I would. Because although Travion Henderson was already off the board, and Marion Hampton was already off the board, and maybe if Travion was there, okay, maybe if he was there,
I think that's who I think was the number one on the board, was Henderson.
I think possibly, but if he was with the pick, they could have made a trade forward if they wanted him that bad. And that being said, and Quinshon Judkins was off the board, but who wasn't off the board? Caleb Johnson wasn't off the board, and he was ranked right around the same as those two in a lot of ways. In some drafts, some analysts above one or both of them. So the fact that he was still on the board and they went RJ Harvey tells me that maybe sans Travion Henderson, that was their guy. And as we've said this whole time, I trust the process. I do. And guys, if you'll help us out, maybe trust our process a little bit. Yeah. We would sure appreciate it if you trust our process. And I don't know, like, subscribe, share, and comment over on on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, ding that little notification bell so you know when we go live. Check us out on Twitter, on Facebook. Check out the audio version of our podcast on all your favorite platforms. But then also, hey, jump on over to our partners over at MHRT Network. Like, subscribe, share, and comment. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. They're even on Instagram. So, guys, we'd appreciate that very much. It helps us with the algorithm, and it helps us grow. And then, of course, a big part of our process, I know it's part of my daily process, and I'm pretty sure it's part of your daily process today, is if you would is the sponsor of today's show, because I use it every day and Jay does too. That's W Generalist Energy Blend. It's in the link is in the bio below. Go check it out. W comes in a multitude of amazing flavors. So many good flavors to choose from. It has enough caffeine to give you the kick in the butt you need to start your day and keep your day going without getting the jitters or the crash later. Why? Because Dubby has absolutely no calories. It has no sugar. It has no maltodextrin, no fillers, no artificial colors. It's all natural, nothing but amino acids, B vitamins, and nootropics that help keep you sharp throughout your day. And the caffeine in Dubby, 2 cups of coffee worth in every cup of Dubby, is derived directly from the coffee plant. So it's very natural and so delicious, and it gets you going, but you don't get the jitters or the crash later. It is a true dub. But we're going to make that dub even sweeter because at the checkout, you're going to punch in code NRWOB10. That's NRWOB10. We'll give you 10% off your order. So, guys, jump on over. Check out Dubby. You will not regret it. All right. So, kind of getting back into the draft stuff, Jay. I said it. I know that we were live during the draft, or at least the first round. And we're going to unpack each and every one of these guys, at least to a degree. But I got to say, I feel like, I know that I said it several times during the live draft show, you got to trust in Sean Payton and George Payton's process. They're proven. And that's the thing is, at the end of the day, I feel like, sitting back and really looking back, we have a lot of fun. All of us and all of Broncos country, all fans have a lot of fun speculating and trying to figure out what's going to happen and putting grades on players and picking their favorites and all that stuff. We have a blast with it. But at the end of the day, we're not scouts. We're not, we don't have, we might be looking at a player and seeing what, his traits that we see, but maybe the team is looking for something different. They're not necessarily just looking for traits. They're looking for leadership, or they're looking for someone who, brings something else that we don't see, we don't know, and all these things. And at the end of the day, I gotta trust in the proven product that is a draft class built by George Payton, and then in the last 3 years, George and Sean Payton. So what are your thoughts?
No, I honestly, the Paytons made a statement, as they normally do, in unison. They basically stood up and said, "I am the smartest man alive!" And they showed it because they had under-the-radar picks that maybe were on the boards of other teams. I know the news broke today of Jacksonville saying, "Son of bitches, you bastards, picking the players we want." Yeah. It's one of those things, though, that like you appreciate that they like to zag when everyone else wants to zig, but at the end of the day, the jury will be out, and they have, I guess, good history under their belt thus far in picking up some studs that, like Nick Bonito. Nick Bonito is a perfect example of that. A player that you're buying for the ceiling, not the floor. Like, it is a developmental thing. My God. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I can look it up. The tight end we took within the 7th round that has played, I think it was
57 snaps, 4 catches.
57 snaps is in his entire career since 7th grade. That is his.
That's because he was a basketball player.
And we've
get more into that.
But yeah, we'll get into him specifically. But that's those two flexing in a nutshell. Devon Vele last year was another one that like probably would have went undrafted, but like that's their guy, and they got to have one of their guys on their board.
They're not gonna. If they're showing. I'm not going to risk watching the guy I want go to someone else. It's that simple. So yes, he could go undrafted, and yes, we could get him after. But what if? What if someone else sees what I see, and there are still 10, 12 picks after me to go? And what if somebody else sees what I see and they go nab him? And my plans, what I want to do, it's gone. And they're like, and it's their team. It's their team. They're going to do what the hell they want.
That represents jumping back into the 3rd round and getting Savion Jones. Like, that's the kind of pick where they made sure they were going to go get him. Like, that's their guy.
Yeah.
and they knew it wouldn't probably work out if they stood still on the 4th round, and they just made the moves to go get their guy. And that's super encouraging because they will hit on some of those, even if they miss on one. Like, they do it enough.
And that's the thing.
They're going to hit.
And that's the thing that a lot of fans don't take into account is you're never going to hit on every pick.
Nope, you're definitely not.
There's always going to be somebody. We drafted plenty of them in the, over the course of the Broncos franchise. But even just in the last 10 years, we have drafted plenty of dudes that it looked like they had high upside. I mean, come on, Henderson.
Carlos Henderson. Carlos Henderson was one of the worst draft picks I can ever remember. He was a 3rd rounder. But when you saw his film, coming out of college, you were like, "That's a slam dunk." Yep.
And then he turned out to just not be able to play at the NFL level, and that happens.
Yep.
And
drafted high, 3rd round draft pick.
Yeah.
So
you
never know.
And in a giant bust. Jake Butt, another great example of a dude who, he had some injury concerns, but he was a premier tight end for that draft.
The same could be said, honestly, for
Greg Dulcich.
Greg Dulcich was the exact same story. If it wasn't for, I think it's his right leg his hamstring on his right leg. Yeah. Like, if it wasn't for that, the dude had skills. Like, he had a skill set, but you just take a chance. You take a chance. You could even throw Javonte Williams into that because the dude had a great rookie season. Sure.
And then gets injured, and now what have we had? I mean, he's going to be a footnote in Broncos history. That's the thing is not every pick is going to hit. But in this draft, unlike others in recent memory, we didn't have to sit there and grab for like the sexy picks to try to make, to save this team. This team is now elite, in my opinion. Even like going into this offseason, we were on the cusp of being elite. Now we were where we could be to not only pick for today and tomorrow, but to pick for next year and the year after that, so that we have developmental prospects. If we got to let some guys go, we got dudes that we have homegrown to fill their positions. That is exciting for me. It's something we haven't been able to do.
Yeah, we can actually focus on depth because we have so little holes that we can have luxury picks. And like some of the positions, I mean, like Barrett, 1st round luxury pick. Like, that was already a strength and pillar of the defense. So like to double down and basically order caviar when you already have,
crab cakes
away. Like, it's not that big a deal. I don't know. It's just a different mindset, I feel like, for us fans to like realize those things. Like, this was also a draft where I sat back and thought, like, man, over months and months on Twitter that I saw people arguing with each other about who is a better prospect, Luther Burden versus, Muko Becca, or, whatever the matchup was in position, the Warren versus Loveland crowd, all these different people. We don't know anything at the end of the day. Like, to your point, like we aren't the people shopping for the groceries. So I just kind of feel like we should take this draft specifically as an example to like stop freaking out before the draft next year of like having, such crazy discourse about, something that we're going to probably not even think about the way it will actually go down. No one had this on their bingo card this draft.
We just become best friends.
No one had it on their bingo card.
And that's the thing, is that it's fun. It's supposed to be fun for us. Look, we say it all year long, right? We talk about armchair coaches, right? Like, sitting, we all sit here and think, oh, I know better. I know that they could have done this and that, and I would have thrown that challenge flag or whatever. But we're, at the end of the day, we are armchair coaches. Well, during the offseason, we're all armchair scouts.
Correct.
But we're not there. We're not at the combine. We're not at the pro days or their the Senior Bowl or whatever. analyzing these guys, interviewing them, sitting down, not only getting to know the player that they are, but the person that they are, seeing what they bring from a leadership standpoint, what kind of traits they have both on and off the field. We don't see all that. We just see the film. We see some stat lines that are put out on, different websites, and we see film, and we go, hey, that guy, I like that guy. I mean, look at me, dude. I was so high on two lower round running backs, Kiner from Cincinnati and Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. Dude, I love them. They didn't go to us. They went to one of them went to the Bengals, and the other one went to, I don't remember the other one. Maybe the Bucks. I don't remember. But at the end of the day, I had fun. We had fun doing it, and that's great. Mm-hmm. But we are not coaches. There's a reason that Sean Payton is not only the head coach, but a Super Bowl winning head coach. There's a reason that George Payton is now considered one of the best drafting GMs in the NFL. They have earned that right. We have not. Granted, I love what we do, and I love that we have a voice, and I love that we have gotten to where a lot of Broncos country knows who you and I are, Jay, and knows who Orange and Blue Network is and respects what we have to say. But at the end of the day, I'm still not the guy. And so I have to look back and take a step backwards and go, okay, you guys are the guys. I trust what you saw, what your staffs saw, and I'm comfortable standing behind what you did.
It's just when you go down the line and you put yourself in the perspective of a lot of these other teams and their needs and the way they go about the draft, I feel like we undersell the aspect of the draft that is so much relational. Like if they just get a good vibe from a kid, doesn't matter what that kid should be on a big board versus his competition in the draft. And sure. we want to make this a who's higher on a big board type of game pre-draft. And we kind of get lost in the shuffle of like, is this a culture fit? Is this a guy that's for the specific use of these drafted for? Is it an ideal fit? Like the fit is everything about the draft. It is Absolutely. A gamble, like we said, but it is all based upon fit. A really good player, like I said this from the beginning, Genty, it's fine. You go to the Raiders, but the Raiders are not a team that's set up for him to be successful on paper. Like
not right now, anyway.
There are better fits. The fit for a lot of these first round draft picks is somewhat questionable. There were a lot of teams that just went a lot of different ways than at least what everyone else had it pre-draft mock wise. So
Absolutely.
It's always just crazy. It's, a different reality than the mock draft world we lived in for months upon months before the draft. But super interesting to watch, man. It's a season in itself, aside from the actual regular season.
Oh, I love the draft. It's Christmas. I have as much fun with the draft as I do getting ready for the regular season.
Yep.
It's a blast. And we had a new show. We created the Orange and Blue Network mega show for the future that will be there for other ones where we bring together multiple hosts from multiple shows for whatever reason. We got to have a lot of fun with it, and I'm really excited about this future, and I'm excited about this draft class. And and before we really delve into these guys, real quick, let's just caveat onto a couple of topics that we just kind of hit on really fast. And one, of course, being we're CU Buff fans. So I
want to talk about this.
How about Shedeur? Now, knowing full well that anything that we say or believe is complete and total speculation, why in the hell did in your opinion, I have my own opinion on it, but why in the hell did Shedeur Sanders, who had a top 4 grade in a lot of dudes' rankings, fall all the way to the 6th round?
The Mel Kiper meltdown as to why he had slipped, and he was like, I want to say like a top 10 player on Mel's big board, like, very high. He has a very high opinion of Shedeur, and he was just disgusted that the way it turned out. And I think he's more disgusted in the general consensus, I think, of not wanting to deal with the Sanders entourage. I think at the end of the day, everyone's looking for a reason as to why it happened. And a lot of the national media, because, this was a top of the sports section story for days after because of the prank phone call, which is some effed up stuff. The more that we've learned about that whole situation, and I guess Dylan Gabriel got one, Tyler Warren got one. There were more than just him that got the prank call, but Shedeur is too big of a personality to be a backup, designated backup, and you don't even have a chance to play situation. And I think that's ultimately why some of the teams passed on him once you got to the third round, and even the second half of the second. It's not worth the trouble. But dude, Shedeur, at the end of the day, you just take a step back. If you flipped him and Dylan Gabriel, or it just ended up in the first round the way a lot of people mocked it, that Cleveland would take him, he actually ended up in the exact same situation as he would if he was a first rounder on a team where he can start.
Just paid a lot less.
True, but for God's sakes, he just got gifted $1 million apparently. If you saw the whole article about the party he had, and he was rapping, and dude, he's a celebrity. He don't give two craps about what he makes in the NFL. I don't know.
Here's my, and you talked about Mel Kiper. I'm going to talk about Daniel Jeremiah. Daniel Jeremiah had him top 4. Daniel Jeremiah hits on 99% of his predictions. Usually. He's
a good one.
And I might be being a little generous when I say 99, but I'd say he's above 97 in terms of his predictions. And, he was just as shocked. I don't know if he was necessarily as disgusted as Mel Kiper was by it, but he was shocked by it. And I've got simple thing to say about it, man, because you know me, Jay. You know me very well. And I love Shedeur. I love him on the football field anyway. Okay, I do. I have his jersey. I will always have his jersey. It's gonna be hung up on my wall in here because he did do some monumental things for our CU Buffs. He did. However, you also know, Jay, you've known me all my life, which, by the way, I just have to share this, by the way. I want everyone. Oh, real quick, we haven't hit the comments. I'm going to hit the comments real quick, and then I'm going to get back into it. We have Shy Vargas in the house saying, "Hey, guys, I am so grateful about the draft. As am I, Shy. It was good to hear from you. Shy gave me a phone call the other day to talk about it for a few minutes, and it was good to hear from him." Gary Neighbors says, "Go Broncos Country, get 2 tight ends." I can't wait to see what this tight, what we do, in the second wave of free agency, so to speak, and the development of this young man that we drafted. Bonkers Bronco says, "No more mock drafts. The draft is over. Everything is normal again."
Thank God. People had some superiority complexes online about their mock drafts. It's just it was always a touchy subject for people. It's crazy.
Agreed. And then Bonkers Broncos also says, "Cortland Sutton's at the Nuggets game tonight. Let's go Nuggets." That's why I'm rocking all my Nuggets gear tonight. But
huge game tonight.
Huge, pivotal, and we'll talk about the Avs too at some point. But I gotta pull this up because this Jay actually sent this to me earlier this week. I was talking about, you've known me all our lives, Jay. Well, check out these 2 young kids right here, hanging out in my parents' living room. How old would you say we are there, Jay? 12 and 13, maybe?
Probably younger than that for me. I was probably 11, 12, yeah.
Yeah, so you would be 11, I'd be about 12 there, rocking the Broncos Super Bowl 32 T-shirt, and you're rocking an Avalanche shirt, and look at these 2 young whippersnappers who still had their Denver sports love even back then.
It's very true. It's been a long run. It's been a long run of the ups and downs of being a Denver sports fan. It's just it's weird to live it in the nowadays compared to back then. Crazy.
Two cousins right there, still living their best life. And dude, I would never trade our childhood together and growing up the way we did for anything, man.
Yep.
But anyway, going back to, so I'll take that down now. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't embarrass you putting us up there.
No.
I mean, I think I'm the one that should be embarrassed. Look at that hairstyle. Like, what was I thinking?
I mean, I got suns out, guns out, Johnny. Like
that's right. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, dude. Almost all my shirts are suns out, guns out. But
flexing those 11-year-old muscles.
yeah. But I mean, look at that hair, man. Like that's quintessential '90s right there. Like the spiked haircut. And I mean, I know that I'm not there because that was before that point in my life. But I look totally stoned. Like,
well. And eventually our children will probably look like that as well at some point.
Probably, likely. Some of mine do right now. My youngest got his hair cut the other day, and this was his face the whole time. My barber was cutting his hair. He was just like, I said, "You got to stay complete." I said to him, he's 4 years old. I said to him, "You got to stay completely still." And he goes,
"Pretend you're shocked."
The whole time. But anyway, what I was saying, back to my point on Shedeur. I brought up that picture because I was saying you've known me our entire lives, Jay. We were born a year apart. We're first cousins who grew up together. We are in a lot of ways we were just as close as if we'd been brothers. And and you know me that even though I like him on the football field, I'm a big when it comes to sports and athletes and individuals, I am a huge proponent of character. Of who you are and how you carry yourself in your daily life. And let's just be honest, man. Like, Shedeur did not do a good job of that going into the draft. I mean, fake it till you make it, bro. It's an interview. Like apparently he's never really. I'm guessing he probably growing up rich the way he did with being Dion's son and all that. He probably never had to get a summer job, but I mean. You teach someone to interview, man. You know you got to sell yourself.
Well, so this is an interesting take to that. We've heard about the interviews and everything, and like how badly he crashed and burned. Tyler Plumbus today brought up a really interesting, I guess, perspective or point to this. He's like, I think Shedeur misunderstood what the assignment was when it comes to like the process for the draft. Like he went into it like it was a recruiting trip. And that these NFL teams are fighting over him, and he is trying to be recruited and wooed by them, and he didn't think he needed to woo anyone, which is how a college player feels. Like
it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel that way. If you want to be that high in yourself, okay, all right, but you got to know that you still got to present yourself in a way that isn't going to push people away. And, in a lot of ways, the interview thing, I mean, that's just one part of it. That's just one part. But the interview thing, like, he walks in there acting like he's the head honcho, like he already owns this franchise. And these guys, and, like, these coaches are like, dude, who do you think you are? Yeah. And then on top of it, man, like, to only grant visits to 5 teams, that's not a good look, man. That shows everybody that you do not that you believe you're better than everyone.
Well,
and
we talk about relationships. Like that's what this draft was about, was relationships. I mean,
it's a team sport.
Example.
It's a team sport, and you're showing that you care much more about yourself than your team, and that is a bad look. And I think that's ultimately what did it. I think it was the look that that they got of him, and they were like, "This guy's going to put himself before the team every day." At least that's how it seems, and we're not going to allow that. So they humbled the crap out of him.
I feel like I could spend an entire hour on this topic, but I'll say this too: is like these maybe these are all things, but like, do we hold that against Tyreek Hill? Do we hold that against other me divas that are currently?
I've never been quiet about that.
They always have opportunities even when they screw up. So like I just feel like all that could be true, but we don't hold other players to that same standard, and we don't have, I feel like, the same perspective on that attitude if you're a quarterback compared to other skill positions. I think that's also treated differently in the NFL when it comes to a owner being involved in the draft pick. I don't know. It's just a different situation.
It is. It's a very different. And here's the thing. Here's my last point to him. Well, 2 points. 2 points. One, I believe that Prime and his and his staff should have done a much better job preparing him for this draft process, for how to go about it. I believe he was done a disservice that way, because let's be honest, he's entitled and he grew up entitled, and that comes across.
Always.
And that comes across. So they probably should have spent a little more time being like, hey man, so I get you feel this way, I get you think this way, you like to talk about yourself this way and blah blah blah. But maybe tone that down a bit, maybe do this, maybe say that, maybe stand up and shake someone's hand, as opposed to shake someone's hand before you sit down instead of sitting down then shaking their hand, things like that. I think that they did him a disservice on that. Now, the last thing I will say, yes, the Browns got him exactly where they were going to. He went exactly where he probably was anyway with Cleveland. Now he's going to be paid a hell of a lot less, and currently is viewed as a backup. This guy is talented. He is incredibly talented, and he will be a starter in this league. He will be.
He will.
He's going to have a massive chip on his shoulder now, and he's going to walk through and eventually he's going to be the guy on the field. Don't know when. That's to be seen. But
Dylan Gabriel ain't it. I promise that.
No. We have my adopted nephew here coming in saying, "Hey uncle, how are you? I just played Ocarina of Time. Classic Nintendo game." He also says, "Did the Broncos win?" Well, buddy, we had a winning season. But that season ended in January when we were knocked out of the playoffs, and now we're waiting until the games kick back off in preseason games kick off in August. So
I would say objectively we did win the draft. So I would say yes to him.
Yes, objectively we won. So now that's a perfect way to caveat right into the dive we're going to do on our draft picks, right? What do you think, Jay? You think it's a good time to start that?
Well, it's a good time to show this comment. Our good friend, a 6'10" Mexican, did want to make sure everyone understood that based upon that picture, I was a lot cooler than Johnny.
Yeah, okay, whatever. You can eat me and you're fired. No. Love him to death. Adon's a good dude, but you're wrong. Anyway.
Wrong.
All right. So let's check it out. So with the first pick for the Broncos, we selected the best player available, which shocked a lot of people. No one saw it coming. Not a single mock from anybody ever had Jahdae Barron, and that's how it is pronounced, by the way. It's Jahdae. Jahdae Barron falling to the Broncos, and the Broncos selecting him. We were all a little taken aback initially, especially on our live draft show. But the longer time has gone on, Jay, how do you feel about this pick of the dude won the Jim Thorpe Award, so he is, maybe not Travis Hunter, but he is the best cornerback in the draft. How do you feel about making this pick by the Broncos?
I think if he wouldn't have been there, so I had heard, and I don't know if you remember seeing this or not, but I had heard that they declined a team that was offering to trade up and basically let us trade back. And they said, no, thanks. And so they opted to keep the pick. And this is a player that a lot of other people had top 10 board, mocked top 10, was going to be an outstanding talent in a very weak first round talent draft compared to other years. So crazy value. It was best player pick and position in need, but you draft good football players and you hope for the best because keep stacking them. I don't know. What was your perspective on going CB in general?
Dude, look, it's not what I would have imagined would happen. But at the same time, one thing that I said in one of my tweets, first of all, Broncos Country was taken way aback by this pick. And I would love to just highlight, I don't have the tweet up, but highlight a tweet made by a friend of ours, Dr. Nick Manning, well known around Broncos Country. He literally puts out a tweet. He's like, all fans, scream and holler for their team to take the best player available until their team takes the best player available.
Yep.
Which absolutely was Jahdae Barron. This dude is an animal. And in my initial tweet about him, I said what we did was we took a position that was already considered strong. We were already strong there, and we just added steroids. The guy is, you watch some of his highlights, which I have here for us. We can watch a little bit here. Like I try to make do some of the short highlight reels. But you look at him, you look at this guy. Hang on, I apologize. You look at this guy, and he is a Swiss Army knife, Jay.
Yeah, he played all three different positions, within the CB room. Like, he's super versatile. He goes anywhere.
Well, not just the CB room, in the entire secondary.
Safety. Yeah, safety as well.
So, I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife. You see him here. I mean, he's a ball hawk.
He's a baller. He
is considered a shutdown CB.
And he is Chris Harris approved. Chris Harris approved. Like, right after drafted, Chris Harris was like, "This is the best like inside slot that we've had since me. Like, this is the guy." And he knows ball. Like, he basically he started the wave of like super good number 3 nickel cornerbacks in the modern day pass game of playing 3 wide almost all the time for most teams, shotgun. Like, this guy is a starter. This guy's going to be as impactful schematically for our defense as PS2 is, because we can man up now. So much pressure, so many more different looks that Vance Joseph can throw at offenses pressure-wise, because he can just man these guys up. Like, dude, he can shut down whatever receiver he's on. Just let him play man. It's crazy.
Absolutely. And like I said, the Swiss Army knife aspect of him, being able to play any position in the secondary, that gives us an incredible it just gives us incredible ability, for depth. If any one of our guys goes down, anybody, Brandon Jones goes down, or Talanoa Hufanga goes down, Riley Moss goes down, God forbid, even if Pat Surtain goes down, you can trust that this guy is going to be able to do everything. And I don't know if you saw his introductory presser with the team, but listening to him speak, this guy is insanely intelligent. Insanely intelligent.
He's a leader.
Yes.
Coached by Vance Joseph's brother. Is that right? Brother?
Yes.
Or cousin?
Mm-hmm.
He was a brother. So he already is familiar with, the Joseph defense. I can't imagine him and his brother don't, have
some similarities. They're not carbon copies of one another in terms of their play calling, but they have a lot of similarities. And what character? What kind of character this guy has, man? I mean, he absolutely is just like, he's like, hey, thanks, coach, or thanks, Penners, but can you put me on speakerphone so I can thank every single person in the room for what their part in this process, for changing my life and for changing my family's life. He gets up there, and whether you're religious or not, I'm a very, very Christian man. Jay is too. We go to church and all that. But listening to him, I mean, he's sitting there, he's throwing up the glory to God and all this stuff. What character and kindness, and he's not selfish. And I mean, let's look at excuse me. Those are just some of his intangibles. Let's look at some of his tangibles here. All right, so I mean, he gets a 6.42 prospect grade on next gen stats. That's high. That is very high. And then you've got a young man, 5'11", 194 pounds. He's quick. He runs a 4.39 40-yard dash. That's fast. That is fast.
Do you think he's going to be given the assignments to float around his rookie season, or do you think we'll just put him in at nickel right out of the gate, and McMillan is just an extra?
Yes.
He's actually not going to be in.
No, you don't make a pick like this.
You don't make a pick like this and not put him out there.
I don't think he's going to float. I think he'll float if he has to. If like I said, if someone gets hurt and he can play and he can slot into their position, fine.
I feel horrible for Cad because I feel like this is just such a got to be a defeating feeling for him, and he did nothing wrong like that. But it's an unfortunate thing because it's not like they were displeased with him or the room or anything like that.
Absolutely not. It was just the need. It was just making a position. It was looking at someone and saying, "This makes my team better." Yep. And unfortunately, when teams get better, it can actually hurt an individual.
Much like the other defensive line and edge rushers in general that we drafted in third and fourth round.
Yeah.
I mean, same kind of idea. Like those are luxury picks that we already have our starters ready to go. Like we're not looking for a starter. It's all depth right now.
Yeah, we have Fanatic Dak in the house as well. We'll continue on Jahdae Barron here in a second. He says, "What's good, fellas? I love the draft haul. Ray Rice is my RJ comp." We'll get more into RJ here soon, but I have a few other comps for him that I liked that I saw. He also says Jahdae Barron is so elite. Daniel Jeremiah had him 10 on his big board. Fell to us at 20.
What an incredible value.
Michael Yost pops in saying, "I'm sorry I'm late. What have I missed?" Oh, we're just talking the draft, Mike. And you really didn't miss, the first half hour was just spent shooting the shit, so to speak. We're just talking about the players. Now, Mike Carmelini, the man, the myth, the legend, popping in saying, "I would draft this show #1 overall." Oh, love it, Mike. Thanks, buddy.
What a guy.
And so, back to Jahdae, 4.3940. He does a 1.5 second, 10-yard split, 35-inch vertical with a 10-foot 3-inch broad jump. This dude is an animal. And look, I'm not really going to go so much through the bio. We know that he won a lot of accolades, right? He was first team All-American.
He was the best defensive player or best defensive back in the nation. Beat Travis Hunter for that role.
For the Jim Thorpe Award, yes.
Yeah, the Jim Thorpe Award.
Travis Hunter's special because he's so good at two different positions. But as far as the defensive back goes, it didn't get better than Jahdae Barron.
That's why I at least for me, I had the pipe dream and thought a lot about wouldn't it be sick if Travis Hunter was on the other side of PS2 and we had that talent in that position. What would that do to this defense? Well, we kind of got that in a way still again, but not obviously in just the guy that we thought it was. But it was literally this will never happen. But imagine if it did happen and we influxed CB as a first round knockout prospect in that room now to this defense. Craziness that it just, that's how it is.
It's bonkers. Let's read up on a few of his strengths here real quick. Above average size and strength as a big nickel corner, able to forcibly redirect routes over the first 5 yards. That's hard to do, by the way. You got usually players are getting to 10 yards and more before they're getting the redirect. He's getting that at 5 yards. Has high awareness and instincts to make timely responses from the zone. Ran receivers routes for them like he knew the play in 2024. And this is all per Lance Zerline from NFL.com. Claws, slaps, and punches to beat up the catch point. Swarms in after catch with good angles and physical strikes. Under control and slides his feet to tackle in the open field. He can also change direction very quickly. I mean, he can plant and rotate those hips.
So, Johnny, draft night, we were talking about, oh, crap, now we look at the perspective of, what our division has added in Genty and having to go against him twice a year and Omarion Hampton and what, the Chargers are going to do. The tackling aspect of what Barron provides is unquestionably an underrated trait that I feel like is going to come in really clutch in just run defense. Run defense will have an improvement.
Well, you'll have Talanoa Hufanga out there as well. Strong safety.
Obviously, a huge difference too.
And in nickel packages, when Barron's on the field, dude, yeah, he'll absolutely be helping to swallow up those running backs. Huge plus there. He did list some weaknesses though. He said limited exposure in man coverage. Limited, okay. Might not have the top speed to carry verticals by himself.
Okay.
Average lateral transitions and recovery bust when beaten, but he doesn't get beaten often. So there's that. Needs to run through and wrap up more frequently. And they did say that he has a shorter wingspan, which could impact some ball production and tackle success. But, again, this kid literally lives, he said it in his introductory presser, lives for film study.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll find ways of making them better.
His build and what his skill set is more inside. He is a nickel corner, but people shouldn't poo-poo that, because in my opinion, that is as important, if not more important, than your other outside cornerback. This really is.
Both of which are very shut down themselves already. We know that.
Yeah.
So we just took probably one of our only slight weaknesses, because Jaquan McMillan did a good job at nickel.
He did. He was good.
He had some struggles, but he did very good at nickel. But we took that position, and we're like, how do we make this defense not just elite, but how do we make it scary?
Yep.
And Zach Stevens, our buddy over at DNVR, literally is the one that said it, and I felt it in my bones. He was like, we just went from a top 3 defense to the best defense in the NFL.
Dude, this secondary on paper is just as talented as the time in which we finally gathered all of our powers for the no-fly zone. When we first signed TJ Ward and Talib, and we started getting
Harris.
all the guys together, and we saw it finally come go. That's how I feel right now in the timeline of what this defense looks like. We have no injuries and things fall into place. I mean, this is going to be a historic defense if we can see it through,
Absolutely.
with what we have on paper, at least.
Absolutely. Michael Yost comes in saying, Jahdae Barron is definitely such a solid grab for us. We may be in the era of no-fly zone again, and I'm so ready for it. I've heard a lot of no-fly zone 2.0. I personally prefer it when you give a group a new name.
New name. It's a new era.
Something different, totally air traffic control or something like that. Yep. But, it's all right. He wants to know if he said, I also love his mentality of thanking the draft room. How he said he's so happy his mom's sacrifice paid off. That man is going to dedicate himself to his team.
Absolutely. He's an A1 player. He's a super high floor. He's going to be.
I'd say a very high ceiling too.
Yep. He'll be around a long time.
Mike Carmelini asking everybody, please hit the like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe. We'd appreciate it. Kodiak Broncos coming in saying, didn't like the Barron pick on draft night, but I have come around.
I didn't either.
That's good. None of us did. Well, I did a little bit. I was probably higher than anybody else on it, but
I said to you, I think that on the Nothing Rhymes right before the draft, that the one position I would be really mad if we drafted in the first round was cornerback. That was literally my answer. And I stood strong on that until I really sat back and thought about it.
Totally. And when you watched his tape, you were like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now it's time to move on. Our second pick in the 2025 NFL draft was R.J. Harvey, running back UCF. Jay, your thoughts on this? We already kind of talked about him a little bit earlier in the show, but your thoughts on this pick and how it impacts our team now.
This is a Sean Payton pick. This is not a George Payton pick, in my opinion. This is a guy that I feel like Sean Payton has an exact use or something in mind for him. He already has a plan for this type of player in RJ Harvey. And I think it was supposed to be Henderson. I truly believe this plan that he has for a rookie is out of it. So it's a running back that's going to be out of shotgun. And that is a totally different kind of running back than would line up in a single formation or an I formation or a more power style double tight end type of offense. That's not what we're envisioning with this player. So we have basically the same template that we would have ran for Henderson, but Harvey out of the backfield, if you just looked at, like, right when we drafted him, I went to YouTube and I watched, some greatest hits, some mixtape. 90% of all of his big plays are out of shotgun. He has incredible vision, and he can be out of the backfield incredibly fast, and his route tree is nuts. The only thing that I can say... Yeah, go for it. Oh, yeah.
No, go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish, and then I'll bring up his highlights.
No, I was just going to say, like, the only knock is his pass pro, and Henderson was, like, an amazing pass pro type of running back. But, like, based upon the highlights we're about to see, Harvey doesn't need to pass block because he's going to be running a route every single play that will necessitate a defense to follow, or at least account for. So, like, who cares about pass pro if you're never pass proing? Go ahead.
And here's the thing, and I'll get into my takes on him after we go through his short highlight reel here. But guys, if you haven't seen these, check this out. Like,
that's versus Colorado. Yep.
That was him running Travis Hunter. He is quick. Fast. He is very fast, and his acceleration. I think his acceleration is what gets me super excited. Is that he's patient. He waits for a hole to develop, but as soon as he sees that hole, those legs, his acceleration is insane. He's like, there it is, it's mine, and he goes, and he's gone. He's through it. He makes tacklers. He makes tacklers miss. He bounces off. He pinballs a lot. Look at this one. Here he goes, pass catching, something that we yes, and he just goes. There it is. There he was on Travis Hunter, the number 2 overall pick in the draft.
Well, who he originally was on was the middle linebacker Bentley that's right behind. And so, dude, that is the matchup that you obviously exploit for a running back. And he shows in this exact play, that is a blueprint for Sean Payton to utilize him in an NFL-style defense, at least in a game plan sense, because he's going to be on, middle linebacker on him.
Another thing that you'll see, I don't know if you actually see it in this highlight reel, but I think you do, is he played some wide, he was a quarterback at one point as well. He played, and they ran several. UCF last season ran several wildcat formations where he took the snap and then went in for and then made these insane runs for touchdown, and it was absolutely unbelievable, mind blowing.
He's a home run hitter, and that is why Caleb Johnson was on the board, and Caleb Johnson would make more sense if we needed a 3-down back that's going to be a traditional back getting the monster of carries and the ground and pound game. He went to a perfect situation in Pittsburgh, whereas that's exactly what they do. So we definitely were never in the running for Caleb Johnson. That was never going to happen for us. This was the exact type of weapon we were looking for. And I mean, we got a guy that can do it. It's exciting.
Now, I'm going to bring up this. I'm going to give my 2 cents. I'm going to bring up this comment by Michael Yost. I think this is an absolute A+ pick. A lot of people didn't have, apparently didn't have him on their big board as high as, of course, we drafted him. But there were some that did. We heard about it earlier today that Jacksonville wanted him, and they were ready to make that pick after us. They didn't think we were going to take. And when the news came out to them, when their GM went out to grab a snack, and his staff had to come find him to say Harvey's off the board. He's like, "Who took him? The Broncos." He was like, "Bastards." Yep. So, look, Harvey is going to be special. Now, this, and he checks out a lot of boxes for us. Yes, his pass pro is lacking. However, I think it's something that can be coached into him. And Sean Payton has taken a lot of guys very similarly to R.J. Harvey in his past. Alvin Kamara, very similar.
This is a Darren Sproles type of model.
Absolutely. And so he knows how to coach him up. He'll get him there. He may not be the best pass blocking running back in the NFL, but he'll get him to where he's passable. And what did we ask for? We said it, Jay. What were we really asking for?
A joker.
Okay. Now that's what all Broncos Country he is. No. What I was going to say is a running back who just makes our run game better than it was. Yep. Takes some pressure off our quarterback, and he does that. He will do that. I will bring up this comment real quick by Michael Yost, and then we'll go into some of his tangibles. If I can find there it is. He says he's a small guy. It kind of worries me. I hope we utilize him properly and stop the committee backfields. I so want us to get a Jonathan Taylor or Saquon out of this guy. Well, here's the thing. Sean Payton will always be running back by committee. It's a rotation for him. Always.
Philosophy.
Which in a lot of ways, in my opinion, is a good thing. Because when the guys at every down back, they wear out faster. You utilize if you rotationally play guys, they stay fresh and they don't wear out so fast. There's that. On top of it, he is, like Jay said, he may not be a 3-down back. That would have been Caleb Johnson, but he wasn't ideal. He wasn't an ideal fit for us. And RJ Harvey he looks small on paper, but you know what? Him and Ashton Genty, the first running back to go off the board, the one that everybody wanted, also 5'8", and maybe outweighed him by 3 pounds. I think Genty was 5'8", 208.
RJ
right?
Harvey is the Genty light in body style and playing style. Like Harvey can make people miss. He's very stout, like very compact.
He's got a strong build.
Correct, very strong build. So like,
and he's got a low center of gravity, so he doesn't go down easy.
And that's the best. Those are the best traits that Genty has, and why he can break them. I
think like I said, we're going into his tangent. So I mean, he's not that small. His size doesn't worry me. If everybody wanted Genty, there's no reason based on size that RJ Harvey should be any different.
I would agree.
But going down to his combine results, a 4.440, 1.57 10-yard split, 38-inch vertical jump, 10.7 broad jump, and Ben, did 16 on the bench press, which I don't know if you know this. The bench press, when they do it at the combine, is 225 pounds for every player. Cool. It's 225 pounds for every player. He put it up. That little 5'8", 205-pound dude put it up 16 times.
That's nuts.
Nothing to slap check. That is strong. That is
crazy.
Strong. All right. Another, strengths by Lance Zierlein. Impressive productivity over the last 2 seasons. Relishes the heavy lifting and wears opponents down over time. Maintains good pad level and sequences on his carries. Low cut body type promotes excellent contact balance. That's what we're talking about. Low center of gravity, doesn't go down easy. Displays ability to dart from gap to gap when choosing his pathway. Tacklers who come in too high will be bucked from the bowl. He did say runs with modest levels of burst and elusiveness. Needs to expedite his tempo to stay ahead of NFL defenders. Absolutely. Average instincts and feel for lane development. And then movements are segmented and lack creativity between the tackles. Below average ability to square install NFL blitzers. So that's his pass blocking his lack of pass blocking.
Yeah, the pass pro in that, but he also dances. That was one of the knocks that I heard as well. Is sometimes he tries to set up a home run and he wants the big play, and sometimes he does not take what's given.
And that's another thing that they'll coach out of him. They'll coach that out right out of him.
Got to be a little more conservative at times in the NFL.
Absolutely.
But that's going to be, I think, a home run hit right there. The type of player they were looking for this whole time, I think that's going to make a massive upgrade over Jaleel McLaughlin, who is what this is supposed to be, but it just never has accumulated for Jaleel. And I think that honestly, it spells the end probably of him in Denver. With this draft pick, Johnny, who's out? Is it Blake Watson? Yeah, is it Blake Watson?
I honestly think it's probably. I think it'll be Audric will be there. Audric will be on the team. It'll be RJ, Audric. You'll probably have either Bidet or Watson on the practice squad.
Yeah,
and then I think Jaleel. He's. I think he's gone.
I could see Jaleel being gone, and I could see Blake Watson being gone. I kind of see, because of RJ Hampton's one weakness of pass pro, we could sign a vet in the same ill of what we did in Samaje Perine's time, of like just a guy that we know that we can send out there in third and long, and like he can go at least be a serviceable pass pro person.
Mm-hmm.
Because initially as a rookie, RJ Harvey might develop into that, but like week 1, he's probably not going to be ready to go to do that.
Probably not, but we'll see what happens. Michael does say, when did we ever see Saquon ever get worn out? Listen, if that's the Sean Payton way, I got to deal with it until he retires, so be it. But I want our running backs to be able to develop better options in games which they could not do last season.
I 100% agree.
I hear you. Saquon, we've never seen Saquon get worn out that way. But here's the thing. The running back position, by position, as a position, is the most damaged and worn out the fast. It's the position that's worn out the fastest on average in the NFL. Running backs most running backs only have one good contract in them. And after that, sayonara. And so there are a few exceptions to the rule. Guys named Marshawn Lynch, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Terrell Davis, T.O. There are guys that are the exception to that rule, but on average, running backs were out faster than any other position on the field.
I've always been anti-committee approach. Philip Lindsay always used to say that like a lot of running backs need a certain amount of carries just to kind of get into the flow of the game. Like there are a lot of guys that because they're bruisers, they need to kind of get hit around a little bit to like start wearing down linebackers and such, and like really get into the flow of a running game for the entire game.
And we're gonna have to roll to our next pick here in a second if we want to stay ahead of our clock here. But
yes,
at the same time, I hear what you're saying. I do. And I think when you have with Sean Payton, obviously once Alvin Kamara got himself, established as who Alvin Kamara is, we saw him used a lot. We saw him used more than the other backs.
True, not wrong.
That did not mean though that he didn't rotate other backs in to give Kamara a rest sometimes. So I mean, I love this pick, and I'm very excited to see what he does for the Broncos. At the very least, he takes pressure off of Bo Nix in the pass game some. And that's what we want. That's what we want. He will open up. He will take pressure off of Bo needing to run all the time. He will take pressure off needing to pass the ball all the time, and he'll open up the play action. So that
even if we don't get a consistent home run hitter out of him, even if we can get another player on this roster that can potentially just, bring down the house, even like Ronnie Hillman had that ability to do it.
Yep.
It just wasn't a consistent thing, but he was a specialist in that of like, if the game wasn't going well, go put in Harvey. Harvey's going to go do something crazy and like take the whole momentum back around. Ronnie Hillman was that kind of player. I'm excited for him.
Me too. I do too. Now, so we're both excited about RJ Harvey, and I think all of Broncos country should be as well. Let's go ahead and move on to our third round pick, Pat Bryant, the wide receiver out of Illinois. Now, Barry, I think it's important to mention all of our first three picks were team captains.
Yep.
For their respective teams.
Great character draft.
So, character and leadership. So I absolutely like. I love that. Pat Bryant was definitely one that is one of those ones. Jay, I'll go first on this one if you don't mind. That a lot of people said we reached for. That you could have got him in the third round. That he that you didn't have to trade up and get him again. Trade up again in the second round to get him. And I hear that, but at the same time, I really like that this is the pick that they went with. They knew what they had in him, and a lot of people have been down on him because of production or whatever the last season. But if you look at Illinois' play, just in general as a team last season, he was the shining star. They didn't have a lot of star power at Illinois these last few seasons, and and unfortunately that does limit what you're able to get out of some of these guys that could be something very special. And I think that's what Sean Payton and George Payton saw in this guy, is that while he doesn't look as hot as like T-Mac or some of these other wide receivers that went earlier in the first round and stuff, and Matthew Golden and all that. He played at a place. I think a good example is Quinn Miners, playing at Wisconsin Whitewater, a Division 2, like Division 4 school or something, and Illinois is not a small school, but they're not known for being a true football juggernaut program. And Pat Bryant went out there and he got it done a lot. And so before we get your take, Jay, let's check out a little bit of his highlights real quick. If that's all right with you.
Mm-hmm.
Remember to do this beforehand now. So there we go. All right, now let's check out some of these. Now there he is in the middle of the field, taking good passes over the middle of the field.
He had a game versus Nebraska. I actually watched this game.
Huge game against Nebraska.
Yep.
I think he scored 3 times in that game, Jay?
Yeah, he was the most dynamic offensive player they had by a lot.
Easily. And he gets those 50-50 balls. But if you listen to his interview that he did on KOA with Ryan and Nick and Ben, he was like, how did he say it? One, he absolutely loved. He loves going for those 50-50 balls because of the mentality he has is that's my ball. It's not 50-50. It's 90-10.
Yep.
The other thing that I think set him apart, you can't see it a whole lot in this video, but one thing that I think set him apart a lot from the other wide receivers that were still available, when we made this pick, is his not just his ability to, but his love of blocking. Wide receivers love to catch, but most of them just love blocking. He literally said, "I love putting cornerbacks in the dirt."
Yep. He's a big body.
So
he's a
big
body.
part of his game. And I think that's one of the things that truly set him apart is we need a good blocking wide receiver, and this guy is that.
Yep.
With sure hands.
It is little Jordan Humphrey plus a lot. Plus a lot of other skill sets. I'm very excited for this player because, again, he's another player that I think a lot of teams had on their board as a sneaky pick. We just kind of probably jumped in a value sense of big board a little high for him, but we still got a great target, a great player. This is a hands pick to me. We saw even from the great Cortland Sutton in the playoffs that we don't have a whole lot of sure-handed wide receivers. 3rd and 6, we just have to get some guy to get a catch for 7 yards. This is a guy that is a possession wide receiver, and we've needed a sure-handed person for a long time because we had way too many games last year that Bo put it on the wide receiver, and we had mental lapse drops that were just so frustrating, even from Sutland pretty consistently. So, this is a perfect role. This is what I kind of thought Devon Vele would be, but I think this is maybe just a double down of Devon Vele's role of we need a hands guy. We have to have 7 yards, have to have it over the middle. Hopefully Ingram, has a part of that strategy as well. But this is a wide receiver ready to go on the outside for that role.
Well, and I saw something recently that talked about how he's probably going to take little Jordan Humphrey's position. The way they utilize him. Sense. And the thing about it is, a lot of people don't realize this. Little Jordan Humphrey, love him, hate him, good moments, screw ups last season. He was on about 50% of Denver's offensive snaps. Yeah. So we might be seeing a lot of this guy. He's 6'2", he's 204 pounds. Going down, he runs a 4.6 140, so not the fastest wide receiver, but from what you saw in the film there, and from what I've been reading up on him, he's such a good route runner. He creates separation regardless of his speed, and that's important.
Well, Johnny, we should love this type of wide receiver because this is the Rod Smith prototype.
Yes.
Of he is a grinder. He's not amazing at anything, but he's not bad at anything. He is just a very well-rounded football player that does everything good. And I'm excited for him to play the role that Sean Payton envisions him to play, because I think he's a guy that will be able to adapt to whatever he's given.
Yes,
kind of exciting.
Last, before I get into his strengths and weaknesses real quick, one of the craziest things that really came up too is that Jacksonville wanted both of our second and third picks. They wanted to go get both of them, and when they found out that we'd taken both R.J. Harvey and Pat Bryant, they were pissed. So, I mean, that's one thing Isaiah mentioned this in our group chat earlier. Looks like this young GM in Jacksonville has a similar mentality to George Payton in the way that he evaluates these picks. So that might be a little scary going forward in Jacksonville, because we know how good of a drafter George Payton is. Strengths for Pat Bryant, rapid improvement over the last 3 seasons, so we know that he can learn and he can get better, which means, I think he has a high ceiling. Clever at creating route leverage out of his release, does a nice job of reading cornerbacks' hips and feet in his routes. Uses frame and handwork to create separation from tight man coverage. Competitive and urgent, and one thing we know about Bo Nix, he puts the ball where he wants it to go. So if he's put it in the right spot, that, based on that right there, that means that Pat Bryant has a better chance than anybody of coming down.
Automatic hands.
Competitive and urgent in fighting for contested catches. Excellent body control, positioning, and focus on fades. We saw that body control, several toe tap touchdowns by that dude already. That's something that most wide receivers don't come into the NFL ready to do. No. Is those toe tap touchdowns. He does it very well, I might add. High points throws with full extension and deadens feet near the boundary. Again, toe tap. Weaknesses. Production took a noticeable dip against his best competition. That's because his quarterback and supporting cast were not really helpful to him this last season. Lacks acceleration and top-end speed to blow by coverage. Doesn't have the burst to gain real separation out of turns. And did have problems with he did have some bad focus drops in 2022 and 2023, but those seem to have gone away in 2024. Offers below average run after catch, so we don't get as much yak out of him, but he is going to get you those first downs you need. You just might not go the distance. Could use additional strain in his run blocking on the perimeter. But again, he loves to block. The more that they get him out there doing it, the better he's going to get at it, I think. So, final thoughts on this pick for the Broncos, Jay. What are they?
Oh, solid pick. Like that we got this type of wide receiver, and we keep diversifying the room. We already have the speed in Franklin and Mims, so kind of glad that we're honing in on definitely a lot of bigs and a lot of littles, and keep adding to the stash. That's okay.
Absolutely. Michael Yost, I won't be sold on any wide receiver until I see the completion stats after 3 to 5 games. There are too many guys who were decent wide receivers in college that can't hold on to the ball in the NFL.
Very true.
I agree. We'll see, just like we did with Devon Valek, who, by the way, I think is still going to have a breakout season.
I agree too.
But we saw training camp from him. That exact thing was that we saw him making those catches, and we knew that he could go before the games even started. So we'll see once training camp begins. But now I think we need to move on to our fourth pick, and that would be Savion Jones, LSU edge. This dude, definitely good depth. Or Jay, why don't you go first on this one? You go first on Savion Jones.
Yeah, I think we traded up to get him in the third. I don't remember what the compensation was, but this was someone on our board that we didn't think would last and someone we couldn't leave without. And this is, I feel like, the biggest proclamation from this draft out of, all of these picks is this was the one that was like, okay, we believe so highly in this player that we're going to trade up for a position that we absolutely don't need an edge. But it is a great insurance policy on, the JFM situation if he doesn't even show up because of, the obvious sour taste he has in his mouth that he shows on Twitter. Definitely some weird things could be happening this year as far as the rotation on our line. But this is a great edge setter, a great rush defender. This is the kind of position that we desperately needed against Buffalo. This is a fantastic pick. The same reasons you could make the argument for an inside defensive lineman in the first that we kind of, talked about the reasons for. But I like that this isn't just a pure pass rusher. This is more of the Bradley Chubb pass rusher compared to a Nick Bonito pass rusher.
He sets the edge very well, and he could easily convert to defensive end.
Yes, D end is kind of what I would see him as, because Vance Joseph has undersized D ends.
Yes, I could definitely see them converting him to a defensive end. I know that he played some at defensive end as well.
He's not a nose tackle.
No, he's not a nose tackle. You're not replacing DJ Jones with him or anything.
No, definitely not.
By the way, Detroit, real quick, the Detroit Pistons Knicks game is just ending, and Detroit managed to stave off elimination for at least one more game. They pulled it out at the very end there. So very interesting. But the Nuggets game has started, Jay. We're up 12-6 so far. 8 minutes. We were at the 8-minute mark in the first quarter. So Nuggets, so trying to get it out and trying to get it going fast in this one. But I don't know. I like Savion, and I think that, like I said, I think he's a good depth pickup one for now if you needed him. But he's one of those ones we talked about, Jay, that builds towards your future.
Yeah,
you could have him on the edge. You could convert him into a defensive end to replace one of these guys. Obviously, like we said, you can't replace DJ Jones or Malcolm Roach with him, but you could replace, JFM with him. And that is something that I think would be a good thing. And I've got a highlight reel for him here as well. And we'll go ahead and throw that up while we continue to talk about him.
I just it's a very interesting, again, position to target in the draft. But I just kind of feel like this was one of those players that they had on their draft board really high, like, quite possibly second round talent, like a very high drop. So they looked at it as like, oh man, if we can get back into the third and get this guy, this is just as much, neck and neck on our board with Bryant, that they took before him in the third. Like, and I'd
love to point out that he was not always a starter for Alabama. In fact, he was a backup almost this entire season. Played in 7 games, I believe, for Alabama this season. And in that, he had 5 sacks out of only 7 games played. He had 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. And then he was doing this in the SEC. So that's, that's a juggernaut, a true that's not Mountain West. Sorry, Genty, but it's not Mountain West division. This is the SEC. It's the premier juggernaut college division. And and he was, like I said, in only 7 games, he notched 5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. That's important to think about, because that's not something that you would expect to see from somebody who isn't starting.
No, this is a guy that has potential to be a starter and has a really good ceiling, and could maybe be a little project, but somewhat. He doesn't need to start. That's the amazing aspect of putting a player like this in the system and in the rotation now, so that 2-3 years down the line he really could be a very contributing factor.
Yes, he could.
I feel like this is the Jonah Ellis pick of the defensive line.
Yes.
Just, hey, I know you're good, but you're going to have really limited reps here for the next 2 years. I want you to hone your craft. And
we're going to make you better.
Yeah, you're going to explode soon.
And like I said, I would not be surprised if they convert him to a defensive end to replace one of these guys that will likely be on the way out in the next year or two.
I mean, Bonito didn't do anything his rookie year. It's almost like you get like a red shirt, and this would be a fine red shirt year for this guy. but he could be a starter.
Yes. They didn't post his 40. I don't remember why. There was a reason. That's what it was. He didn't run a 40 at the combine because he was injured. But he did notch a 33-inch vertical jump, a 9 foot 11-inch broad jump, which for a guy built like him is a pretty big broad jump. We'll knock out his strengths here. Tough, physical, and relentless. Locates runners and works around blocks to tackle. Rushes with explosive get off and good forward lean. Plays with excellent feet for pocket depth. Fluid chop and rip. Move pairs with a spin counter. We love those guys that can spin and bend. Bends and corners hard to constrict the pocket at the top of the rush. Motor and change of direction to stay on the quarterback's scent. Weaknesses. Needs to improve timing to avoid punch in both phases. They can coach that into him. Below average recognition of inside rush opportunities. So he does try to do a bit too much from the outside. Generates average speed to power rush for his size. Inconsistent to separate and set a sound edge. So that's another thing that'll have to, if they keep him at edge, they would have to work a little more into him, is his ability to set a true edge. Forward charging style leads to missed tackles in space. Another thing that can easily be coached out. Nick Bonito actually had the same problem going into his rookie season.
Yep. He needs a year to marinate. He needs a year to get coached up. But he has raw skills, and this could be a very under the radar, high value pick down the road here.
It could be a steal.
Very much so.
Michael Yo saying definitely have moved to defensive end. He is closing run routes and putting pressure on quarterbacks. Absolutely. All right, let's move on from Savion Jones. I almost said Jadavian. I don't know why I almost said that. Q Robinson, another Alabama edge rusher.
Yep. But
two Alabama edge rushers back to back.
But a completely different kind of edge rusher.
Yes.
A whole different body type, whole different play style. And that's why the term edge rusher is such a misleading thing sometimes because there's so many different kinds. But the biggest thing or funniest thing, I guess, that jumps out at me about Q is the Nick Saban quote. I don't know if you saw that about him talking about Q Robinson.
I'm sorry, real quick. Yost just corrected me, and he's absolutely right. I'm sorry. He was Savion Jones was LSU. My apologies.
Yeah, LSU. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. I got it up in my own head. It's weird.
Well, he said SEC.
Yeah. So, all right, continue. I'm sorry.
But Nick Saban said that Q Robinson as a recruit and what he saw from him, because, Q Robinson's been around for a little bit, was that he was one of the best special teams players he had ever seen with his passion for playing and just his heart, the type of instinctive passion that he plays with is off the charts. Charts. This is, in my opinion, a specialty pick. When you're getting to the rounds of, your 4s, your 5s here, you're kind of the slim pickings for home runs. So you're drafting for specific needs, specific roles.
And that's why this pick to a lot of people wasn't the sexiest. It's true. But here's the thing. If you got somebody, Sean Payton said this. They wanted to be able to draft for impact players, both current and future, for all three phases. And special teams, we had at least until Westhoff retired last season. We had the best special teams unit in the NFL. After he left, we struggled for a little bit. Now we have Darren Rizzi, and Darren Rizzi is an elite special teams coach. You give him weapons on special teams, that phase of our game is going to be very special. No pun intended.
So it's weird to say it this way, but he is a starter. This is kind of the same argument you can make for a punter in the 6th. Is how often is it that you're getting a starter in those rounds? He is a special team starter. He really could right out of the gate, be like an impactful player on that side of the ball for, that phase of the game, like you say. Like,
absolutely.
That is a skill set he brings. So, like, pure defensive potential here, on screen you're seeing some plays from him and such, but like that's not, I think, his transferable thing right out of the gate. For
Agreed.
A coach like Nick Saban to say that you are one of the hardworking special teams players that he's ever come across, that's high accolades for this type of player in fourth round.
You gotta look at this. There was a beautiful one against my Mizzou Tigers where he completely shut us out of the end zone, almost single-handedly. But when you look at, you got to think about who Nick Saban is. He's retired now, but he was the most nitpicky, head coach in college football for decades. He was the gold standard. Who is one of the most nitpicky head coaches in the NFL right now? Yep. Sean Payton. So, I mean, it's
they all believe in all facets of the game, the old school coaches like that. I mean, that's Belichick's thing. Belichick was a special teams coordinator. Like, he is a, fundamentals of football type of person. And this is a fundamentals of football type of player. Like, this is overall, you got yourself a football player. And like, you can't have enough of those kind of guys around. So what a good role I think he could play. So
yes, absolutely. Michael Yost brings up another couple points. Says don't have to worry about Mims getting leveled if we block the punt. Absolutely. And if not special teams, also moving him to defensive end with Savion. Anyone's running back is going through a meat grinder on either side. Well, of course, we still have Zach Allen. And Zach Allen's going to get his extension. There's no way they're going to let Zach Allen walk. I don't think. So I don't know if you're going to see him move to defensive end, but you could train up his edge as well. Behind behind Cooper and Benito, and he could do a lot. He could do a lot, and he could be depth at defensive end if you had to have that depth for injuries or whatever.
On pure defense, I feel like Savion's on a whole different level compared to what Q Robinson's going to
Absolutely.
do. I think we're talking totally different, tiers.
Yes. Different players, different tiers, different skill sets, just different players all around. They were both listed as edge, but they do not play the same.
Correct.
So good pick. I liked it. It's not the sexiest pick by any means, and it's definitely not my favorite pick in this draft. However, I think at least on special teams, he could be an instant contributor on this team.
I agree.
So we'll go ahead and move on from Q Robinson to our last two picks of the NFL draft. This one is the one that everybody's like, oh, God, really? Or one of the two anyway. I liked this pick. Jeremy Crawshaw, the Aussie, and I don't have any highlight reels for these next two because they are so impossible to find.
Sure. But
Jeremy Crawshaw, the Aussie rugby style, who played rugby style punter, who takes his ability as a punter from his playing rugby growing up. Look, we needed a punter, Jay. We got what's his name, Matt Hack, who wasn't anything super special. Hey, it's an underrated position, Jay.
It is.
You have to be able to pin teams deep.
And again, this is what smart teams do: is they invest in the fundamental. That the build the trenches teams are the same ones investing in special teams. And this is a starter. You got a starter in the 6th round. Like this guy will have and touch the ball far more than any other 6th round draft pick. So, I mean, he will play a role for the offense. But it's just still the feeling of like, there could have been somebody else, get another running back or something in the 6th. That there were still a lot of.
I get that. I get that. But I think their plan for running back is exactly what you said. They're going to get somebody to come in, some vet in the 2nd round of free agency to come into the room to help bolster it. I like this pick, okay? Because you know me, I've always viewed specialists as very underrated. And a punter, you need someone. Granted, our hopes are absolutely that Bo Nix and our offense aren't going to be putting us into a lot of positions and needing to punt. However, there are going to be times that we do. And when we do, we want someone that can pin them deep. Now, a lot of people have been talking about how his hang time is low, and he had, about 47-yard average these last 2 years. But that had to do a lot with the special teams play and the way it was designed for his team. In the past. During the combine and at his pro day, this dude was booting 65-yard punts, and he was putting up a hang time of 5.5 seconds.
Whew.
So I want you to think about that for a second. While he wasn't doing it so much on film, when you saw him actually doing it at the combine and stuff, you're like, holy crap. If this dude can boot 65 yards and he's an expert at pinning the ball where he wants it, pinning them at the 5-yard line with a 65-yard punt, and on top of it, you add onto it a hang time of 5.5 freaking seconds. By the time that the returner is ready to catch the ball, our dudes are on his ass.
Bruh.
It's going to be, it's a definite improvement over the current punter that we brought in, Matt Hack, who probably will likely be a cut. Unfortunately,
I would think
for
so.
him.
If you're drafting a punter and not starting him, we got problems. We're not carrying 2 punters.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Yost agrees kind of here too. He says the man in the picture is 100% just happy to be there. Yes, and what a mustache! As a facial hair aficionado, look at that man's mustache. It's glorious.
Yeah, that is pretty.
Yost also says, with how our division is shaping up, I feel confident in this pick to get us out of bad situations. 3 and outs happen when you get the ball on your own 25. Having a good long punter is always good. I couldn't agree with you more, buddy, and I'm all here for this thing. So, final thoughts on picking up a punter in round 6.
Yeah, it's a punter, like, what are you going to do? Like, it's a necessary person, obviously, to have on the roster, and it only makes a huge difference when they screw up, really. I would have probably been fine with a 7th-round punter or an undrafted punter, but time will tell if this punter, is worth a 6th-round draft pick or not. But at least they got their guy. Good for them. Like, again, this is part of the whole, like, trust the process draft to me for this draft of, I don't necessarily disagree or agree with this, but, like, I'll trust you here. Like, you know what you want. You know the groceries you want to buy. So if you want a punter in the 6th, I guess have at it. Here we go. Let's go.
So now we'll move on from Jeremy Crawshaw to probably the most, interesting pick, or
another edition of Trust the Process is
Trust the Process for sure.
Caleb
This is
Lohner.
Caleb Lohner, the Utah tight end who has played only 1 season of college football, took only 57 snaps, made 4 catches. However, I will caveat in saying that all 4 of his catches were red zone touchdowns.
Are you serious right now, bro?
So I just want to say that he only had 4 catches. They were all red zone touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, but
so
he had how many? What was the number? The number of snaps? 7th grade. Number of snaps is like.
I don't know about since 7th grade, but I know that he only took 57 snaps last season.
Well, then that's it, because
But here's a little bio on Caleb Lohner. Caleb Lohner is a basketball player. That's
and
where
he wasn't very good.
But he had the athletic traits.
He did.
That come with being a basketball player. And Sean Payton said it in his press conference, his post-draft presser, that when he's looking and evaluating potential draft picks, he's not only is he looking for ability, he's looking for traits. What has Sean Payton done in the past that shocked the world? He went out and took a basketball player who'd only played I think 100 snaps in college football, named Jimmy Graham, and he turned him into the Jimmy Graham that we know.
Yep.
An absolute game-changing tight end. There's another tight end in our past that absolutely had an almost identical story, and his name was Julius Effin Thomas. All right, Julius Thomas played only 1 year of college football. He walked in one day, and his basketball coach said to him, "Hey, buddy, you're a good baller, but I don't think you're getting drafted by the NBA. I think maybe you should try out for tight end on the football team." He went out. He made the team. He was drafted a year later in 2011 by the Denver Broncos and went on to break records with Peyton freaking Manning. All right? Basketball players make epic tight ends because one, they have the intelligence. Tight end, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Tight end is the most difficult position besides the quarterback position to learn on an offense. Basketball is highly complex. The plays are constantly changing, and it is a nonstop pace, and you have to be able to read plays that change constantly. He's got the intelligence there. He is highly athletic, got great vertical, got great body control. These are all the traits that Sean Payton sees and goes, I can make that man a star tight end.
I mean, let's all be real here. He's not a tight end. He's a wide receiver. This man ain't going to be doing any blocking. He is there as a 6'7" monster that is athletic as hell. Johnny, do you have his 40 time? I don't remember what I had read.
No. Here's the thing. He wasn't invited to the combine. He wasn't invited to the combine.
He had his own. He had there was a number.
I can't remember what it is though, and I'm not sure where to find it at the moment.
It was like the thing I was listening to was that it grades out pretty average tight ends, if not significantly better. Like he's got speed to him.
He's got speed, he's got size, he's got hops, and he's got good hands and great body control. All the things you look for in an NFL tight end, at least as pass catching NFL tight end. So, he is definitely a project.
Who knows?
This is not someone you're going to see getting many snaps during the regular season for the Denver Broncos in 2025.
He'll be a practice squatter the entire year.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. If somehow he comes out, if he, like halfway through the season shines in practice, they might give him a day on the field. But regardless, this is a project. This is a Sean Payton future. Like I said, this is another one, drafting for the future. This is a Sean Payton pick. This is a Sean Payton project. I guarantee he was nowhere on George Payton's board if not for Sean Payton saying to him, "Hey, dude, I want this."
Yeah. Michael Yost bringing up Lohner's 40 time was 4.69 for a 6'7", 250-pound guy. Good
That's
Lord.
fast.
Yeah.
And while I couldn't find a really good video to bring up for his highlights for the show, I have watched the 4 snaps that he caught balls on and saw very, very good, good catching traits, especially his body control in the end zone. If nothing else, he could develop into a great red zone threat.
Yeah. He can jump insanely well. I mean, he's a basketball player.
Yeah, he's a basketball player. I mean, what else do you expect? Vertical jump, Michael Yost, put it up for me right there. 37 with a broad jump of 10.6, which actually isn't that great. He can go high. He can't, for a guy his size, he needs to be able to, you'd expect him to actually broad jump a little bit more than that. But his vertical is where it's at, and that's what you need, right? That's what you want from him is being able to go up higher than everybody else and come down with it.
We must be in cahoots with, shots in the dark from Utah because going back-to-back wells. I don't know if they ever played on the same team or if Lohner well, no, they didn't because Lohner just played last year and that's it. So they never crossed paths officially, but still from the same, same program. Pretty nuts. We'll see.
It's kind of crazy. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All in all, I was happy about the way this draft fell.
Yep.
It's not the sexiest draft ever, and it wasn't meant to be. They didn't want it to be. They wanted to build on all 3 phases for both present and future, and they did that. They did that in every way. Some of them may not end up panning out for us, and that's in a year right now, with our team as it stands, Jay, in my opinion, with our team as it stands, ready to do what we think we can do, this is the time that you want to be drafting for possible picks that might end up busting later. You know, you wouldn't want it in a save us now year. But right now, as we stand, if a couple of these guys end up busting, fine. Okay, well, we'll fix it again next year. I liked this draft. It wasn't sexy, but it was effective.
From a team perspective of team construction, the jury's still out because, like you said earlier, we haven't hit the second wave of post-draft free agency, which I think will really tell, a lot of signs as to what they see, the actual 53 to look like. For an example, like I still am worried post-draft about the tight end room. We're one Evan Ingram injury away from having basically the same room as last year, and that's worrisome because Ingram has a history of not playing a full season. So like that's on average gonna be that case for 5-6 games a year, maybe.
It's possible, but again, like you said, there is. Well, real quick update on our Nuggets game. 1:15 left in the first quarter. We are up 31-21.
Whew, thank God. Please just don't lose us this game, Russell Westbrook. I know he came back.
Yeah, agreed.
Back in.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, he's back in. He's actually in the game right now. Just took a pass from Jokic. But anyway, looking ahead, again, I'm very excited. I'm also very interested in some of these undrafted free agents that we picked up. And I'm actually going to be writing one of my predominantly orange articles on the pickup of Clay Webb, who is one of the most intriguing players in this draft because he had a third round grade as an offensive lineman, but fell out of the draft completely because of an issue that happened back in 2018, a hazing issue.
Some nasty work.
Yes, some nasty work, and that's one of the things. It's a little surprising because the Broncos usually tend to stay away from character issues. We're definitely not the Raiders, but if they see something, I mean, if the dude, I like to think this happened back in 2018. That's 7 years ago. That's a long time ago. He was young, man. That was in like high school, wasn't it, for him?
Yeah. Correct.
So, he's grown. He's a man. He's a grown man now. I like to think that they probably saw something that he has grown past those mistakes, and that when he dropped out of the third round, it was a no-brainer to bring him to Denver when he dropped out of the draft but had a third round pedigree.
A lot of characters. We also got a player named Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very awesome.
Make the team or anything, but like as far as names goes, I would.
That's a cool name, man.
I want him on my team.
Maybe next year we'll get Jack Daniels or something.
Yep.
But
absolutely fantastic.
Love it. There's a lot to unpack. And looking forward to the future for us, guys. Make sure that you're liking and subscribing and sharing so that you're with us all off season and all season long. We're live all year long, and we're gonna we have Broncos talk on Wednesdays, Viva Los Broncos on Fridays, debuting in June. Will be the Broncos Bros. We're gonna get some more shows launching here soon, and on top of it, we now have our mega shows that will be going on. We're going to be doing another Orange and Blue Network mega show for the schedule release on May 14th. So make sure that you join us for that while we break down and discuss the schedule and how it looks for us and how it plays out. And it's going to be a good time, Broncos Country. So, Jay, any final thoughts?
No,
that you want to give before we get out of here?
It's a good draft. I feel like the verdict will be out. Like I said, I'm very interested to see what they do for free agent vets here to fill the roster out. But very entertaining draft, man. And it's on to schedule release. It's the next event in the extravaganza that the NFL offseason is. So On to the next one.
Like I said, we will be having a mega show for that, bud. So getting everybody together on one show live during the release.
That'll be right around the corner.
Yep, right around the corner. It's going to be a blast. And my final thoughts on it is solid draft, not sexy but solid, and it is the kind of draft that I would hope for when you're building around your new franchise quarterback, when you're building around the success of a team that was predicted last season to be unsuccessful and turned out to be successful. In my opinion, this is the perfect draft to have after that kind of a season. So it is a good draft, and I can't wait to see how it pans out. And I can't wait to see what's around the corner for us, especially with the schedule release, rookie mini camp, and finding out things there. And it's going to be a blast, man. So, and Michael Yost, last thought here from him. A lot can happen in character development over 7 years. Absolutely. You got to think he gets in trouble in Clay Webb gets in trouble in high school for doing something stupid. We all did stupid stuff in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Every one of us has at least one thing we did in high school that we look back on and go, that probably wasn't a good idea.
Cringeworthy.
So,
sure.
He's a man now. All right? Like, I'm gonna roll with a diamond in the rough in him and give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yep.
Which will be reflected in my article on Predominantly Orange on him. So, with that being said, guys, we did go way over what we normally go on a live show, and we do apologize for that, but this was a big episode. Really needed to digest everything we saw. We thank you for hanging out with us tonight. We can't wait to see you next week. Make sure you check out Broncos Talk tomorrow night on Orange and Blue Network. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share, and comment. Hit that little notification bell on YouTube when you subscribe as well, so you know when we go live and you don't miss any of our content. Check us out on Twitter, on Facebook, the audio version of our podcast, and all your favorite platforms. Go check out our sister station, MHRT Network, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and even on Instagram. We appreciate you very much, Broncos Country. And now it's time for a Nuggets game where the Nuggets are up 37-25 with a minute into the third quarter. So here we go. Go Nuggets! Go Avalanche! We're not even going to talk about last night.
Nope, I refuse to talk about last night.
But it's okay. This series isn't over for the Avalanche either. But go Nuggets! Go Avalanche! And go Broncos! We're out of here. Have a good night, Broncos Country.
Let's go!
Uh-oh. What the heck happened here? Hold on. My outro video got deleted. Nope, there it is. There we go.
Okay, bye.
Orange and blue, we're here for you. Talking Broncos all day through. No stopping us, we're on the loose. Come join the crew, no bad news. Podcast vibes so fresh and true. Nothing rhymes with orange and blue. Catching up on all that we knew. And play, let the episodes accrue. Nothing rhymes.